The It franchise is a complex story told across multiple generations. And with the first season of Welcome to Derry, things just got a lot more complicated. Like time travel levels of complicated.
To Papa.
Here's how it all fits together. Spoilers for Season 1 and the films ahead.
2017's It didn't get into the backstory of its ancient antagonist outside of implying that it's been around for a long time. But thankfully, King's original novel goes into much more detail. It, the shape-shifting being that often manifests itself as a creepy clown named Pennywise, has actually been around longer than mankind itself. It's an ancient cosmic being that's billions of years old that originated in another dimension outside of our universe known as the Macroverse. In prehistoric times, it came to Earth on an asteroid, landing in the place that would millions of years later become Derry, Maine. It can take on any form, but its favorite eventually became that of Pennywise the clown.
As strange as Pennywise is, its mortal enemy is even more bizarre. A giant turtle named Maturin who hails from the same place as Pennywise.
The turtle is a being of creation rather than consumption, and actually vomited our universe into reality when it had a stomachache. So, compared to that, a shape-shifting death clown isn't all that weird after all.
There are some pretty large gaps in It's history between the time It arrived and the time It started feasting on people. It's sort of hard to keep a record of things if there's, nobody around to do it. For an unknown length of time, It chilled as sort of a formless entity, but then people showed up in his neck of the woods, the Scotawapscot. That began a cosmic struggle that's raged ever since. It began using the people's fears to hunt, waking in a cycle to feed before hibernating again for 27 years. Meanwhile, they discovered that the shards of the meteor that carried him to Earth could be used as weapons against him. Over time, that western wood that formed It's domain grew into something those early tribes would have never recognized: Derry, Maine. So this evil It entity has been loafing around Derry for eons. But it wasn't until a traveling circus came through town in 1908 that it realized how much kids liked clowns. Enter Bob Gray, just a regular old circus performer delighting kids everywhere as Pennywise the dancing clown.
Gather round and feast your eyes on the amazing Pennywise the dancing clown!
Somehow, Andy Muschietti and crew managed to turn a visual that's been synonymous with horror for years into something you actually feel bad for. This Bob Gray dude is pretty close to rock bottom. His wife and previous performing partner is dead, and he's trucking around as a third-rate circus clown with his young daughter, just trying to get by.
That's a strange thing for a young man to say.
He's gruff and kind of jaded, but well-meaning. In fact, all It has to do to lure him to his death is suggest that a woman's in trouble. Long story short, It eats him and takes on the Pennywise persona. Welcome to Derry's first season takes place mostly in 1962. It's an idyllic setting on the surface, but there are hints of simmering tensions even before Pennywise rears his ugly baby head. First, we meet young Maddie Clements, who's desperate to get out of town. It doesn't go so well for him. Then we meet a young group who appears to be the show's main child characters. There's Lily Bainbridge, Maddie's friend, who starts looking for answers to Maddie's disappearance with her friends Marge, Teddy Uris, Phil and Susie Malkin, and Ronnie Grogan. It doesn't go so well for them either. Same old Derry, right? So at this point, you've almost certainly recognized some familiar names. Terry Uris is the young future uncle of Stan Uris, although Stan will never get to meet him. Then there's Leroy Hanlon, a major in the Air Force who ships in to work at the mysterious new airbase in Derry. That's Mike's grandfather, or at least he will be Mike's grandfather, and Will here will be Mike's dad. Clint Bowers, grandfather to the infamous Henry, is the chief of police. As the season plays out, it appears crystal clear that Derry is more locked into a generational curse than we previously realized. Operation Precept. Set in the grip of the Cold War, there are undeniable nuclear fears coursing through the first season of Welcome to Derry, many of them centered on the new airbase. The Air Force has taken a particular interest in the town because of some mysterious force that lives in it and projects a psychic aura of fear over the townsfolk. General Francis Shaw in particular thinks that'd be a pretty handy weapon in the right hands, especially since he saw it in action as a kid.
Hello!
And he has a few aces up his sleeve, including Leroy Hanlon, who has a smidge of brain damage that turns off his fear response. While all that's happening in the background, a sort of proto-losers club starts to take shape. Lily and Ronnie survive the Bat Baby attack in the theater, and their search for answers sees them team up with Will Hanlon and a guy named Rich. They all go through the normal IT process, terrifying encounters that all have shared elements, and the sneaking suspicion that there's a monster feeding on fear. They're not wrong, and it isn't long before Pennywise ramps up his attacks. Racial tensions are high in Season 1 of the show, with its 1962 setting putting a big focus on the sordid history of the US at the time, and the penultimate episode dives right into one of the town's most notorious events, the fire at the Black Spot. Anyone with more than a passing knowledge of the IT story knew it was coming. Bowers and a masked posse show up to the nightclub in search of Hank Grogan, and when they get some resistance, they lock everyone inside and set it on fire. A lot of shows might have left most of the details to the viewer's imagination, but Welcome to Derry does the exact opposite, letting it play out in an extended single take inside the fiery chaos of the club. It's a tragic, gruesome scene, and most of the occupants die in the blaze, or at the hands of Pennywise. As Rose and others in the tribe know, this event should be Allegory, marking the end of its awakening cycle once he's sated by a big feast. Now he's supposed to take one of his long naps.
Now, I'm going to sleep.
Fortunately, a few people do make it out of the Black Spot. Dick Halloran, who we'll get back to in a minute, escorts Will, Ronnie, and Hank out of the fire, while Rich sacrifices himself to let Marge get inside a fridge. And you may think she should have cooked in that fridge, but look, fridges were just made better back then. If you can survive a nuclear blast in one, you can definitely survive a paltry little house fire, right? Right? Anyway, she had to survive, because she's yet another connection to the future generation. Marge is Maggie, aka Richie Tozer's mom. And speaking of generational trauma, like we said, Bob Gray had a daughter.
Pennywise and Periwinkle Show!
Her name is Ingrid, and all she knows from that night in 1908 is that when her quote-unquote dad was found, he was acting really weird. By the time 1962 rolls around, she's now Ingrid Kirsch and works at Juniper Hill, where, about 30 years earlier, she saw Pennywise kill one of the patients. When she hears that her father, or at least some sort of creature who looks like him, is back in town, she gets a sort of perverse hope that she might finally meet him again. She gets out her mom's old Periwinkle clown costume and tips off Bowers that Hank Grogan is hiding out at the Black Spot. She has an inkling that things will get bloody, and all that pain and suffering will draw out Pennywise.
Oh, Papa, I love you.
She realizes the truth soon enough. Her real daddy got eaten. But it recognizes a useful servant and, instead of killing her, shows her his true form in the deadlights. Okay, let's get back to Dick Halloran. In the show, he's been working with the Air Force to capture and use it as a weapon. You may recognize the name. This is also Dick Halloran in The Shining, and here he is in Dr. Sleep. He's a recurring character in Stephen King's works with the ability to shine or do some psychic stuff. In 1962, he's using that ability to help the Air Force find those shards of the meteor that carried it to Earth, which were buried centuries earlier.
The star that carried the monster had been its cage.
There are 13 pieces of that meteor, 13 pillars that form a supernatural mesh around Derry's borders that keep Pennywise trapped. General Shaw has always said that the plan is to recover the pillars and gradually move them closer to the town's center, closing the net around Pennywise. But as we find out, he intends to destroy them, giving Pennywise an opening that will set it free on the entire U.S.
So you want to make America Derry?
The idea is that, under the constant shadow of fear, the American people will be more docile. Well, Hanlon doesn't like that plan and tries to stop it, but the shard gets incinerated anyway. With part of his cage destroyed, Pennywise doesn't waste any time. He wakes up and begins taking over Derry, starting by deadlighting all of the town's children, including Will Hanlon, and Pied Pipering them across a frozen lake, ready to leave Derry forever. Lily, Marge, and Ronnie team up to go to save Will, while Leroy and Dick simultaneously do the same thing, forming a plan to find the dagger made from its meteor shard so they can replace the pillar that Shaw destroyed and trap Pennywise again. Fortunately, Lily is in possession of the dagger. Unfortunately, it's starting to turn her into a real Frodo.
No, don't touch it!
get it myself. Why are you snapping at her like, shut up, Ronnie?
They eventually get past that through the power of friendship, then head deeper into Pennywise's territory to save Will with their real power, the power of an ancient space rock. All the threads start to converge out on the frozen lake. Leroy and Dick show up, and Dick traps Pennywise in a trance. Then Shaw and his army men show up, and Pennywise gets out again. As Pennywise skips towards freedom, Will, Lily, Ronnie, and Marge make a final desperate push for an old tree at the edge of the lake, their last chance to bury the dagger and close the supernatural cage. The kids aren't strong enough to put the dagger in place on their own. It takes an appearance from Rich's ghost to give them the combined strength needed to complete the perimeter. They do it in the nick of time, trapping Pennywise again and sending him scurrying back underground. Oh, and Shaw gets his face eaten. It's a bittersweet victory for the Derryites of 1962. There are lost friends to mourn and more than a little psychological trauma to work through. But the threads are in place for what's to come. The Hanlons stay in Derry and take over a sheep farm, and Will's growing up, thinking about Little Mike's. Dick Halloran, meanwhile, is ready to head to his next Stephen King book.
Got old buddy back there who owns a hotel, wants to give me a shot cooking in a restaurant.
The last thing we see is Ingrid Kirsch, who's been committed at Juniper Hill 26 years later. She might look familiar at this point if you've seen It Chapter 2. Even if not, she's definitely going to be familiar to Beverly Marsh.
Oh, dear.
The final frames of Welcome to Derry Season 1 happen in 1988, which is where It Chapter 1 picks up, when 7-year-old Georgie Dembro ventures out into a rainstorm to play with a paper sailboat that his older brother Bill made for him.
The boat gets away from Georgie and journeys down the street until it ends up in a storm drain. After chasing it, Georgie attempts to fish the boat out, only to discover that, there's a clown in the storm drain as well. Though Georgie doesn't know it, this clown is the evil entity Pennywise, who has just awoken from its most recent 27-year slumber. Pennywise entices Georgie to come into the sewer, promising not only to give him his boat back, but also by telling him that an entire circus is waiting for him in the sewer. Georgie gets a little suspicious, but he still wants his boat back, so when Pennywise offers it to him, the kid goes for it. And for his trouble, Georgie gets his arm bitten off. Don't you just hate Mondays? In the film, Georgie gets dragged into the sewer and the town eventually moves on, assuming that he simply drowned. Bill, however, seems determined to find out what really happened to his brother. The Losers Club is the name of Bill's group of friends who eventually go head-to-head against Pennywise. Along with Bill, the club's original members are Richie Tozier, Eddie Kasprick, and Stan Uris, with 3 more members added as the story progresses: Ben Hanscom, Beverly Marsh, and Mike Hanlon. Everyone in the group is an outcast in their own way. The gang bonds over the fact that they're all losers, hence the group's name, and they spend the entire summer together following Georgie's disappearance the previous fall. Though they aren't all aware of it initially, a number of the Losers Club are also suffering from some sort of private trauma. Beverly's father is abusive and domineering, not to mention creepy as hell.
Where are you sneaking off to?
Eddie has an extremely overprotective mother who makes him believe he's constantly sick. Mike is an orphan whose parents burned alive, an event he witnessed firsthand. And Bill, of course, is still mourning the disappearance of his little brother, for which he feels guilty. In addition to Georgie, other children go missing in Derry, such as Eddie Corcoran and Betty Ripsom. This leads the losers to believe that something is amiss in their town. Before becoming a loser himself, Ben begins researching the town's history and finds that violent deaths and disappearances seem to spike in the town every 27 years at a rate of 6 times the national average.
And that's just grown-ups. Kids are worse. Way worse.
But it's not always Pennywise who directly causes the killings. His evil influence infects the town whenever he awakes, causing violence and hate crimes to spike. In the novel, the role of town historian belongs to Mike rather than Ben. Mike first learns of the town's sordid history from his father, who kept a photo album filled with pictures of Derry's history that consequently features a number of photos of Pennywise, some from many decades earlier. As an adult, Mike is the only loser to stay behind in Derry after the rest of his friends part ways, becoming the town librarian and furthering his knowledge about the most messed up little town in New England.
No one who dies here ever really dies.
One by one, the losers draw the attention of Pennywise. It appears to each of them separately, first appearing as one of their worst fears before showing them its clown form. Bill sees Georgie in his basement. Mike sees burning bodies trying to escape a building. Eddie sees a grotesquely deformed leper. Stan sees a painting of a ghoulish flautist come to life. Beverly is sprayed by a geyser of blood from her bathroom sink. Ben is chased by a headless man in the library, and Richie sees a maggot-infested doll of his own corpse. Some of these encounters happen differently in the book, but the upshot is the same. They soon discover that each of their hallucinations have one thing in common: a terrifying clown. The losers quickly deduce that this clown must be behind the child slayings in Derry. Pennywise also appears to Henry Bowers, the vicious town bully who torments the losers. But instead of eating him, Pennywise uses Henry as an agent of destruction. So why go through all the trouble of turning into a bunch of creepy monsters? Well, Pennywise needs to eat humans to survive, and it greatly prefers to devour children. Its reason for this is pretty simple. According to Pennywise, flesh tastes better when it's seasoned with fear, and children are easier to scare than adults. That's it. That's why Pennywise shapeshifts into whatever its victims are most afraid of, and why it usually stalks them for a time before killing them. It wants them to be as scared as possible before making them its next meal. After a frightening encounter with it in the abandoned house on Neibolt Street, most of the losers lose interest in trying to fight Pennywise and just pretend like nothing ever happened. That changes when Beverly is abducted by the clown, which rallies the other losers to come to her rescue. They follow her trail to the town's sewers, then enter its domain to search for Beverly. Then they take care of that mean old clown once and for all, or so they think. After the traumatic experience of defeating it, the children of the Losers Club come to the realization that they're growing up fast. After realizing the importance of what they've just gone through, Bill suggests the losers make a blood oath to swear that if Pennywise ever returns to Derry, they'll return to defeat it again. He finds a piece of broken glass, cuts each of their palms, and then they all stand in a circle and hold hands. This scene essentially concludes the film. In the book, it's Stan rather than Bill who initiates the blood oath, but the sentiment remains the same. All of the losers eventually move away from Derry except for Mike. 27 years pass, and all of those who left gradually forget the events of their childhood. But Mike, having remained in Derry, remembers everything. And when children start disappearing in the town once again, he calls upon each of his old friends to return to Derry and fulfill the oath they made 27 years earlier. The losers all find success in their adult lives, but despite their professional successes, some are still feeling the effects of their childhood trauma. But none are holding on to more trauma than Stan. After receiving Mike's call, Stan immediately remembers the harrowing events of his childhood. Not willing to face it again, he draws a bath and slits his wrists, writing "IT" on the wall in blood as his final act. The other 6 losers reunite at a Chinese restaurant in Derry, the first time they've all been at the same place in 27 years. After learning of Stan's death, and after Pennywise makes its presence known by taking on various disgusting forms in the group's fortune cookies, they declare their intent to kill it once and for all.
First, though, they have to relive some of their childhood terrors, which gives Ingrid Kirsch one more chance to shine.
But tell me, how is it being back in Derry?
In the 2017 It film, Henry Bowers appears to die after Mike shoved him down a well.
Well, fortunately for Henry, and unfortunately for the losers, Henry survived this fall.
After his final confrontation with the losers as a child, Henry is committed to a mental institution for killing his father.
Once he grows up, Pennywise again uses Henry as a weapon against the losers, freeing him from Juniper Hill and sending him back to stop them in Derry. Henry gets a few good licks in, but ultimately succumbs to his Achilles heel, a hatchet to the back of the head. Afterwards, the gang unites at the house on Neibolt Street for one last battle against it. Once they fight through its various psychological attacks, it grows into a giant spidery clown for a final assault, only to be thwarted when the losers recognize that if fear is its strength, mockery is its weakness. They began to berate it, shrinking him down to his original size, then smaller, until he is a flat little flapjack with no more power over them. Together, they crush Pennywise's heart in their bare hands and turn him to dust.
Eddie dies during the fight, and the rest of the losers all again go their separate ways, save for Ben and Beverly, who leave Derry together. Eventually, they all forget the saga they've been through again.
So here's where things might be getting weird. All of that happened, but it's possible it won't have happened forever. Season 1 of Welcome to Derry ends on a moment of huge speculation. And we mean huge. When Pennywise is talking to Marge on the lake, he tells her about her son in the future, Richie, and suggests that he moves through time differently than humans.
I get confused. Tomorrow, yesterday, it's all the same for little Pennywise.
All this time, we've been assuming that the series was merely centering on Derry's past, and it is. But this opens the possibility that Pennywise himself is moving forward by moving through the past. In 1962, he's already experienced what will happen in 1989 and 2016. He knows how it ends for him, and is actively trying to change it.
I know it sounds crazy, but what if he tries to go back and kill someone from the time before we were born? Like our parents.
On top of the vague memory wipes everyone in Derry seems to get, that sort of explains why these people who were older at the time of the It films, Leroy Hanlon for example, don't remember that they were ever in a race against time on a frozen lake with a giant clown bird. That past hasn't happened until after he was defeated in 2016. On one hand, it's kind of a cop-out way to keep things copacetic between eras in this anthology-type thing the It franchise is turning into. On the other hand, hey, it's pretty cool. If you're gonna go big, might as well go all the way.
His filthy friends bring me my death.